Your family now, Isabella, pay your share. Those 7 words, spoken by my mother-in-law across a mahogany boardroom table, changed everything. 50% of my salary. Not a request, a demand. From people who had researched my earning potential before my husband ever said, I love you. I'm Isabella Martinez, and I thought I was smart enough to spot a trap. After all, I'd clawed my way from poverty to a corner office through pure determination and 60-hour work weeks. But the Campbell family had been playing this game for generations. They just hadn't counted on their newest target fighting back. I'm Isabella Martinez, 30 years old, and I'm sitting in my corner office on the 42nd floor of downtown Chicago, watching the evening traffic crawl through the canyon of skyscrapers below. The nameplate on my desk reads Chief Marketing Strategist, but the journey to this chair began in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment where the sound of my mother's alarm clock at 4 a.m. was as regular as sunrise. My parents, Maria and Carlos, were the kind of people who measured wealth not in dollars, but in opportunities they could create for their daughter. Mom worked double shifts as a nurse's aide, while Dad drove long-haul trucks across the Midwest. Their hands were permanently stained, hers with antiseptic, his with motor oil, but their dreams for me were pristine. Mija, Mom would say as she packed my lunch with careful precision, education is the one thing no one can take from you. Dad would nod from behind his coffee cup, already dressed in his uniform, ready for another 16-hour drive to Detroit or St. Louis. College wasn't a gift in our family. It was a collective sacrifice. Yes. Even with their help, I carried substantial student loans and worked 30 hours a week at a campus coffee shop. My days started at 4 a.m., making lattes and memorizing marketing textbooks between orders. While my classmates attended parties, I picked up extra shifts and tutored underclassmen for additional income. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, but somehow I maintained a 3.8 GPA. The grind didn't end at graduation. I started at Bailey Marketing Group as an intern, organizing spreadsheets and making coffee runs for executives who barely acknowledged my existence. I lived in a studio apartment with 3 roommates, eating ramen for dinner most nights so I could make my loan payments on time. But every small promotion came because I stayed late, volunteered for impossible projects, and delivered results that exceeded everyone's expectations. 6 years later, I became the youngest executive in the company's history. But success had made me harder than I'd intended. I'd missed my parents' anniversary dinner for a client presentation. I'd skipped Christmas twice for international campaigns. The fear of returning to that cramped apartment had driven me to excellence, but it had also driven me away from the people who loved me most. That's the version of myself I was when I met Nathan Campbell, successful, driven, and secretly terrified that it could all disappear if I stopped running for even a moment. The annual Marketing Innovation Conference in Chicago was just another networking obligation until Nathan walked into my presentation on digital strategy transformation. While 99% of the audience scribbled notes or checked their phones, he maintained unwavering eye contact with a slight smile playing on his lips. Nathan Campbell was the kind of man who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine, perfectly styled brown hair, deep blue eyes, and a tailored suit that whispered old money rather than shouting new success. He approached me during the networking hour with 2 glasses of champagne and a confidence that felt magnetic. "Your presentation was brilliant," he said, handing me a glass. "You managed to make ROI metrics sound poetic." His attention was intoxicating. Here was someone who seemed genuinely impressed by my drive, my intelligence, my ambition. When he mentioned representing Campbell Investments, I was flattered that such an established firm would be interested in my insights. Our courtship was a whirlwind of Michelin-starred restaurants, weekend getaways to wine country, and thoughtful gifts that showed he'd been listening to our conversations. Nathan was attentive, romantic, and seemed genuinely proud of my accomplishments. For the first time in years, I felt like someone valued me for more than my productivity. But looking back, there were red flags I chose to ignore because they felt like jokes at the time. When I mentioned wanting to save for a down payment on a condo, he laughed lightly and said, "Why worry about real estate when you could just marry into it?" When I talked about my student loans, he seemed confused by my determination to pay them off early. "Debt isn't necessarily bad," he'd say. "It's all about leveraging opportunities." Most tellingly, Nathan showed an unusual interest in my career trajectory. He'd ask detailed questions about my promotion timeline, my salary progression, my company's growth plans. I thought it was sweet that he cared so much about my professional life. I didn't realize he was conducting due diligence. The most telling moment came when I received a significant bonus and mentioned putting it toward my loans. Nathan's face tightened almost imperceptibly before relaxing into his practiced smile. "We should celebrate," he said. "Maybe start thinking about our financial future together." 3 months into dating, Nathan invited me to meet his family at their lake house. I was nervous about making a good impression, spending a week's salary on an outfit that might fit their expectations. I needn't have worried about the clothes; they had already decided exactly who I was. The Campbell estate sprawled across pristine lakefront property, a testament to generational wealth that made my studio apartment feel like a closet. The main house was a masterpiece of understated elegance, with a boathouse bigger than most people's homes and gardens that looked professionally photographed. Walter and Judith Campbell greeted me with practiced warmth that never quite reached their eyes. Walter was distinguished in the way that comes from never worrying about money, while Judith was immaculately put together with platinum hair that didn't dare fall out of place. "Marketing executive at 30, Judith said after Nathan introduced me, her smile sharp as crystal. "How enterprising of you." She paused, her gaze assessing every detail of my department store outfit. "Though I always found corporate careers so exhausting, I chose family instead." Her tone suggested one choice was clearly superior. Throughout the weekend, I observed the family dynamics with the analytical eye that had served me well in boardrooms. Walter controlled every conversation about money or business. Nathan deferred to his father on decisions as simple as where to have dinner. His sister Rebecca and her husband Daniel seemed to exist in a strange limbo of financial dependency and reluctant gratitude, their smiles never quite matching their eyes. Rebecca was particularly intriguing. On paper, she had everything a handsome husband, two beautiful children, a gorgeous home, but there was something hollow about her enthusiasm when discussing family traditions or the wonderful opportunities the Campbell investments provided. "We're so fortunate," she'd say about their lifestyle, but her voice carried the practiced quality of someone reciting lines from a script she'd memorized long ago. Despite the undercurrents I couldn't quite identify, Nathan proposed 6 months later with a family heirloom ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "Join our family," he said, "not build a life with me." The distinction didn't register at the time. The wedding was lavish, paid for entirely by the Campbells with minimal input from me or my parents, who felt distinctly out of place among the country club crowd. My mother looked beautiful but uncomfortable in the dress Judith had helped her select. My father shook Walter's hand with calloused palms and genuine gratitude that made me love him even more. I should have noticed that the wedding felt more like a corporate acquisition celebration than a union of two hearts. But I was in love, swept up in the fairy tale, believing that I had finally found someone who valued both my success and my heart. I had no idea that I was simply the latest addition to a very calculated portfolio. The first few months of marriage felt like living in a beautiful dream. We moved into Nathan's stunning condo, or rather, a condo owned by a Campbell family trust. As I learned from the paperwork, everything was perfectly appointed, from the Italian marble countertops to the view of Lake Michigan that took my breath away every morning. Nathan was attentive and loving, but subtle changes began to creep into our relationship, like shadows lengthening at dusk. He started suggesting I didn't need to work such long hours. "You've already proven yourself," he'd say, massaging my shoulders after a particularly demanding day. "Maybe it's time to enjoy the fruits of your labor." When I traveled for business, he'd call multiple times a day, ostensibly to check in, but with questions that felt increasingly like surveillance. "Who was at the dinner? What did you discuss? How late did it go?" His tone was always loving, but the frequency felt suffocating. The financial pressure started innocuously. When my year-end bonus arrived, Nathan immediately brought up renovating the kitchen. "We should combine all our accounts," he suggested one evening over wine. "That's what married couples do." I hesitated, having always maintained my financial independence as a matter of survival. "Maybe we can keep some separate accounts for personal expenses," I countered. His face tightened momentarily before relaxing into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Whatever makes you comfortable, sweetheart. We have plenty of time to become a proper family." The word proper stuck with me, though I couldn't articulate why it felt ominous. The first real test of our marriage came 8 months in when Nathan lost his job. The investment firm where he worked outside the family business underwent restructuring and eliminated his entire department. I found him sitting in our darkened living room one evening, a tumbler of whiskey in his hand. "They let everyone go," he said flatly. "Effective immediately." My heart broke for him. I knew how much he valued his independence from Campbell Investments, even if that independence was largely symbolic. I sat beside him, taking his hand in mine. "We'll be okay," I assured him. "My job is secure, and you're incredibly talented. You'll find something even better." For the first month, I supported him emotionally and financially without complaint. I took on extra projects at work to ensure our income remained stable, while Nathan supposedly updated his resume and networked, but I rarely saw evidence of actual job applications. Whenever I suggested opportunities I'd heard about through my professional network, Nathan found reasons why they weren't suitable. "That position is beneath my qualifications," or "that company has a terrible culture," became common responses. What disturbed me more was what happened when his father called offering a position at Campbell Investments. Instead of jumping at the opportunity to end his unemployment, Nathan hesitated. "It's complicated," he said when I asked why he wouldn't interview elsewhere. "The family business is going through some transitions. Dad might need my help specifically." Meanwhile, our expenses mysteriously increased. Nathan insisted on maintaining our lifestyle, which included country club memberships, weekly dinners at expensive restaurants, and his golf outings with important connections. When I gently suggested cutting back until he found employment, he looked genuinely confused. "Why would we decrease our standard of living? Your salary covers the basics." I was stunned. My executive salary was substantial, but it wasn't designed to support two people living luxuriously while also building our future and servicing my student loans. Still, I didn't push the issue, not wanting to hurt his pride during a vulnerable time. That's when the Campbell family began inserting themselves more aggressively into our financial decisions. Judith began dropping by unannounced, always when Nathan was home alone during his job search. After these visits, he would approach me with new financial considerations that felt less like requests and more like obligations. "Mom thinks we should contribute to their anniversary party," he'd say. "Everyone in the family is pitching in $5,000. Dad mentioned their investment group has an opportunity, but we'd need to put in at least 10,000 to participate. Each time, I would ask reasonable questions about details, return on investment, or why Nathan's unemployed status didn't exempt us from these family obligations. Nathan would become defensive, his voice taking on a rehearsed quality. This is how families support each other. Isabella, the Campbells take care of their own. The pressure intensified when I received my promotion. After landing 3 major clients and developing a revolutionary campaign strategy, Bailey Marketing made me Chief Marketing Strategist with a 40% pay increase. I was ecstatic and called Nathan immediately to share the news. "That's great, babe," he said, his enthusiasm noticeably muted. "We should celebrate. I'll make dinner reservations at Le Bernardin." That evening, rather than focusing on my achievement, the conversation quickly turned to what my increased salary meant for our future. As Nathan had apparently already discussed my promotion with his parents before I'd even told him the details. "Mom and Dad are so impressed," he said, swirling expensive red wine in his glass. "Dad said this is perfect timing since the annual family investment pool is coming up. With your raise, we can finally contribute our fair share." I nearly choked on my wine. Annual family investment pool. "You've never mentioned this before." Nathan waved dismissively. "It's just something we've always done. Everyone contributes based on their capacity, and the family financial advisor invests it collectively. The returns have been excellent." "And how much would our fair share be?" I asked cautiously. "Just 30% of your annual income," he replied as if requesting spare change. "Everyone does it." That night, I couldn't sleep. 30% of my income to a family investment pool I'd never heard of, managed by advisors I'd never met, with returns I couldn't verify. Every instinct I developed during my climb up the corporate ladder screamed warnings. I called my college friend Emily the next day, the only person in my life completely removed from the Campbell sphere of influence. Over video chat, I explained the mounting financial pressures. "This sounds extremely controlling," Emily said, her forehead creased with concern. "Why are his parents dictating how you spend your money? And why is Nathan okay with this? They frame everything as family tradition or Campbell values." I explained. "Questioning it makes me look like the outsider who doesn't understand family loyalty." Emily's expression hardened. "Isabella, this isn't normal. Married couples make financial decisions together, not with an entire extended family committee." Her words resonated, but I needed more than instinct. I needed facts. The discovery happened by accident 3 days later. Nathan had been working on his laptop at our kitchen counter when an urgent work call pulled me away. When I returned, he was in the shower, and his laptop was still open, logged into his email. I wasn't snooping at first. I was simply moving the laptop to plug in my phone charger when I saw the email thread that changed everything. The subject line read Target Assessment, Isabella Martinez. My blood turned to ice as I scrolled through months of correspondence between Nathan and his parents. The emails detailed my career trajectory, salary progression, and potential for future earnings. There were analyses of my personality, my vulnerabilities, my commitment to financial security born from childhood poverty. Target acquired at Chicago conference. Nathan had written just days after our first meeting. Promotion track looks promising. Estimated value potential exceeds projections. They had researched me, targeted me, orchestrated our entire relationship as a financial acquisition. I photographed the emails with shaking hands, my heart pounding so loudly I was afraid Nathan would hear it over the shower. As I scrolled through more messages, the scope of their operation became clear. This wasn't just about me. There were references to the Rebecca situation and Daniel's integration, and someone named Jennifer who had required more aggressive tactics. When Nathan emerged from the bathroom, I was sitting calmly at our dining table, laptop closed, evidence secured. "How was your call?" he asked, toweling his hair. "Fine," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Just routine client stuff." That night, as Nathan slept soundly beside me, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. If the Campbells wanted to play strategic games, I would give them a masterclass in strategy. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in my career. Once Nathan left for another day of job searching, I began building my counteroffensive. My first call was to Rebecca. If the emails were accurate, she had been in my position once a target who had been successfully integrated into the Campbell financial machine. Maybe she could help me understand what I was truly facing. "Rebecca, it's Isabella. Could we meet privately? There's something I need to discuss." Her pause was telling. "Is this about family finances?" Among other things, we met at a cafe far from Campbell territories. Rebecca arrived looking exhausted, the perfect Campbell wife facade cracking under the strain of whatever she wanted to tell me. "You're not the first," she said quietly, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. "Daniel was targeted because of his family connections to banking. We thought it was love, but Walter had researched his trust fund before Nathan ever introduced us." She pulled out her phone and showed me bank statements that made my stomach drop. Over 8 years of marriage, she and Daniel had contributed over $400,000 to various Campbell family investments, draining their savings and Daniel's inheritance. "My daughter asked to stay in her private school next year," Rebecca continued, her voice breaking slightly. "I had to tell her we couldn't afford it because the family needed us to be responsible. Meanwhile, William just bought a new boat with returns from the family fund that apparently I'm not entitled to see." "Why haven't you stopped contributing?" I asked. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. "Because Walter made it clear that family members who don't contribute according to their capacity might find themselves facing financial difficulties. Daniel's accounting firm suddenly lost several major clients after we questioned an investment last year. Coincidence? Of course." She leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Isabella, they didn't just target you for your current income. They've projected your earning potential over the next 20 years. You're their biggest prize yet." The conversation lasted 3 hours, with Rebecca providing details about the family's financial structure that Nathan had never shared. She gave me copies of documents, contact information for other family members who had questions, and most importantly, the courage to fight back. "I've been waiting 8 years for someone with your position and backbone to stand up to them," she said as we prepared to leave. "I can't do it alone. I have too much to lose. But if you succeed, maybe the rest of us can finally breathe." As I drove home, I realized I wasn't just fighting for my own financial autonomy. I was fighting for Rebecca, for Daniel, for all the other targets who had been successfully assimilated into the Campbell machine. Nathan announced that his parents had scheduled the annual Campbell financial planning session for the following weekend. "All family members are required to attend," he said, avoiding eye contact. "Required?" I questioned. "It's just a formal dinner where Dad reviews the family financial goals." Nathan explained quickly. "Nothing to worry about." But his growing anxiety as the date approached told a different story. He checked my work schedule multiple times to ensure I couldn't claim a conflict. He even laid out my outfit the night before, a conservative blue dress that Judith had once complimented. The Campbell estate looked particularly imposing that evening as we drove through the iron gates. Several luxury cars already lined the circular driveway, indicating this wouldn't be the intimate family dinner Nathan had described. I thought this was just your immediate family, I said, noting at least 8 vehicles. Nathan shifted uncomfortably in the driver's seat. Dad sometimes includes Uncle Robert and Aunt Kathleen for financial discussions, and Cousin William works in accounting, so he provides valuable input. Judith greeted us at the door in a formal black dress, pearls gleaming at her throat. "You're the last to arrive," she said, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. "Walter is about to begin." The scene that awaited wasn't a casual family meal, but what looked like a corporate board meeting. The long mahogany table was set with leather portfolios at each place rather than dinner plates. Walter stood at the head with a remote control in hand, a projection screen lowering behind him to display a PowerPoint titled Campbell Family Financial Overview 2023. Everyone looked up as we entered, their expressions a mixture of impatience and something that felt uncomfortably like anticipation. I noticed my name printed on one of the leather portfolios. Opening it revealed meticulously prepared spreadsheets detailing my company position, salary history, projected career trajectory, and recent promotion details. My private financial information was displayed for everyone to see. "How did you get this information?" I whispered to Nathan, shock and anger rising. He squeezed my hand in warning. "Not now," he muttered. "Just listen." Walter began his presentation with charts showing the Campbell family enterprise structure, a complex web of businesses, investments, and property holdings. He spoke at length about legacy planning and collective family advancement, phrases that seemed to carry weighted meaning for everyone but me. "Now, let's review individual contributions," Walter continued, clicking to a new slide. "Rebecca and Daniel have maintained their 40% contribution rate despite increased childcare costs. Their dedication to family advancement is commendable." Say, Rebecca smiled tightly while Daniel stared at his hands. Walter clicked again, revealing a slide with Nathan's name and a conspicuously empty contribution column. "Nathan's employment transition has temporarily affected his contribution capacity," Walter stated, his voice neutral but his eyes sharp. "However, the Campbell family always adapts to support its members through challenging times." The next slide featured my name, complete with salary details and a projection of my future earning potential. A large red circle highlighted my recent promotion and raise. "This brings us to our newest family member, Isabella," Walter continued, nodding in my direction. "Your professional success presents an opportunity to meaningfully participate in family financial advancement for the first time." The room's attention shifted to me, the weight of their collective gaze suffocating. Judith leaned forward, perfectly manicured nails tapping against the table. "Your family now, Isabella," she declared, her voice carrying the authority of someone unaccustomed to being questioned. "It's time to pay your share. The Campbell family requires 50% of your income." The silence that followed felt eternal. I looked at Nathan, expecting him to defend me or express shock at this outrageous demand. Instead, he nodded in agreement. "That's only right," he said, avoiding my eyes. "We all contribute what we can." "This is quite unexpected," I managed to say, fighting to keep my voice steady despite the betrayal washing over me. "I'll need time to consider such a significant financial commitment." Judith's smile tightened. "There's nothing to consider. Campbell family members pool resources. It's how we've built our legacy." Uncle Robert nodded sagely. "When I married Kathleen, my first bonus went entirely to the family fund. Didn't question it for a moment." "And look at Rebecca and Daniel," Judith continued. "They contribute faithfully despite having 2 children in private school." Rebecca's smile didn't reach her eyes, and I caught something in her expression, a plea for help that strengthened my resolve. "I understand family obligations," I replied carefully, "but I also believe in thorough financial planning." I'll need to review how this affects our household budget, retirement savings, and my student loan repayment schedule. I'm sure you appreciate the importance of due diligence. Walter, using his own corporate terminology, created a momentary impasse. Walter nodded reluctantly, respecting the language of business if nothing else. 1 week should be sufficient for your review, he conceded. That week became the most intensive strategic planning period of my life. I hired Charlotte Reynolds, a financial advisor I'd met through a women's business leadership conference. Unlike the Campbell financial team, Charlotte had no connection to my husband's family. 50% of your income without prior discussion or agreement. Charlotte's professional demeanor cracked slightly. Isabella, that's not just financially unsound, it may constitute financial abuse. Those words hit me like ice water. Abuse. I'd always associated that term with physical violence, not spreadsheets and family investment pools. 3 days of intensive financial forensics with Charlotte revealed disturbing patterns. Since our marriage, substantial sums had transferred from our joint account to various Campbell family entities. The household expenses Nathan cited were largely payments to Campbell-owned properties and businesses. Most alarming were the credit card statements Charlotte helped me obtain. Nathan had opened several cards in both our names, accumulating nearly $70,000 in debt I knew nothing about. He's legally exposed you to significant liability, Charlotte explained. As his spouse, you could be responsible for these debts despite having no knowledge of them. I also consulted Sandra Miller, an attorney specializing in financial disputes, who helped me understand my legal options and protection strategies. At work, I discreetly arranged for my paychecks to be directed to a new private account. The confrontation with Nathan came when he discovered the paycheck redirection. "What the hell is this about?" Nathan demanded, waving his phone showing a text from Walter, asking why my contribution hadn't arrived. "I'm reviewing our financial situation as I mentioned at the family meeting," I replied calmly. "There's nothing to review," he snapped. "The contribution is expected." "Nathan, you and your family opened credit cards in my name without my knowledge. You've transferred thousands from our joint account to Campbell businesses without consulting me. You researched me as a financial target before we even dated. Which of these would you like to explain first?" His face cycled through shock, anger, and calculation before settling on a condescending smile. "You're being ridiculous. I'm your husband. Financial decisions are my responsibility. Show me where I agreed to that arrangement. This is how marriages work. Isabella, the Campbells have built generational wealth through family loyalty. Your paranoid investigation is embarrassing." When gaslighting failed, Nathan switched tactics, his eyes suddenly brimming with crocodile tears. "I'm under incredible pressure from Dad. The family business is struggling. He expects me to contribute, but without your income, I have nothing to offer. They'll cut me out completely. That's between you and your father," I replied evenly. "Using me as your financial solution without honesty isn't partnership, it's parasitic." 1 week after the original family financial meeting, I requested my own session with the Campbell family. Judith sounded triumphant when I called, assuming my request signaled capitulation. I arrived at the Campbell estate dressed in my most powerful executive suit, carrying a professional portfolio and a small rolling briefcase. The family assembled just as before, with Walter at the head of the table, ready to ceremoniously welcome me into the fold of contributors. Isabella has requested this special session to formalize her commitment to family advancement, Walter announced as I took my position not in the submissive seat beside Nathan, but at the opposite end of the table, facing Walter directly. "Thank you, Walter," I said, my voice steady and professional. "I appreciate everyone making time for this discussion." I withdrew my laptop from the briefcase and connected it to their projection system with confidence that momentarily silenced the room. The PowerPoint title slide read Financial Autonomy and Partnership Expectations, a response to Campbell Family Proposal. After careful consideration of the Campbell family financial proposal, I've prepared a comprehensive response. I began, clicking to the first content slide. The slide was titled Financial Independence in Marriage and contained definitions of healthy financial boundaries, statistics on financial abuse, and legal frameworks protecting individual assets. The family's expressions shifted from confusion to indignation as they realized this wasn't a surrender but a counteroffensive. These academic definitions are irrelevant to family business, Walter interrupted. We have traditions that supersede conventional arrangements. I respect traditions, Walter, which is why I've thoroughly examined the Campbell family financial history. I clicked to a slide showing a timeline of strategic marriages within the extended family, including detailed financial transfers from each new spouse to Campbell entities. Nathan's face went pale. Isabella, this is inappropriate. What's inappropriate is conducting financial due diligence on prospective spouses as acquisition targets, I replied evenly, revealing the email where Nathan had referred to me as a target with value potential. Gasps around the table suggested not everyone had been privy to this aspect of the Campbell strategy. Aunt Kathleen looked particularly disturbed, glancing accusingly at Uncle Robert. You're misinterpreting perfectly normal family communications. Judith attempted to regain control. Am I clicked forward to documentation of unauthorized credit accounts opened in my name, systematic transfers from our joint account to Campbell businesses, and the correlation between my promotion timeline and the sudden urgency of family contributions. This is a complex business arrangement disguised as family tradition, I continued, and while I agreed to marry Nathan, I never consented to financial absorption by Campbell Investments. Nathan stood abruptly. Enough! You're my wife. Your financial decisions should align with mine. That's exactly what we need to discuss. I turned to face him directly. I see two options going forward: marriage counseling with complete financial transparency and revised boundaries, or divorce with full financial separation. The ultimatum landed like a bomb in the meticulously controlled Campbell environment. Judith slammed her hand on the table. This is absurd. Nathan, control your wife. He can't control what he doesn't own, I replied calmly. And that includes my income, career, and financial decisions. Walter had remained surprisingly quiet, studying my presentation with the calculation of a businessman recognizing a formidable opponent. You've clearly put considerable thought into this analysis, he said finally. What exactly are you proposing? His question created the opening I'd hoped for. I'm proposing boundaries and transparency. I make my own financial decisions. Any contribution to family investments will be my choice, not an obligation, and contingent on full disclosure of investment strategies, expected returns, and risk assessments. Rebecca unexpectedly spoke up. She's right. Daniel and I have contributed hundreds of thousands without receiving proper documentation or returns reporting. Judith turned on her daughter. Rebecca, this is family loyalty. Is it loyalty or exploitation? Rebecca countered, years of resentment finally surfacing. Our children's college funds are depleted while William gets a new boat from the family pool. The unified Campbell front began crumbling as long-suppressed questions emerged. The controlled narrative Walter and Judith had maintained for years started unraveling thread by thread. I distributed folders containing my formal terms, allowing a moment for everyone to review the documents. This external audit requirement is outrageous, Nathan sputtered. The family business is private. Precisely my point, I replied. I'm being asked to invest 50% of my income into a private enterprise with no transparency, governance, or accountability. No financial advisor on earth would recommend such an arrangement. You're offering to contribute 15% contingent on a complete external audit of Campbell Investments and quarterly performance reports. Walter studied the document carefully. Correct. Standard requirements for any investment of this magnitude. Judith nearly vibrated with rage. We don't need your 15% with these insulting conditions. That's your choice, I agreed smoothly. My terms are non-negotiable if you want access to any percentage of my income. I clicked to my final slide, displaying a simplified analysis of Campbell Investments' cash flow, highlighting irregular patterns I'd identified from the documents Rebecca had provided. An audit would reveal some concerning patterns I've already identified, I explained. Nothing definitively illegal based on the limited information available to me, but certainly questions regulatory authorities might find interesting. Walter's face remained neutral, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. You've overstepped, Isabella. Have I? Or have I simply conducted the due diligence any prudent investor would before committing substantial funds? The same diligence the Campbell family apparently performed on me before Nathan initiated our relationship. This pointed reference to their calculated targeting hit its mark. The power dynamic visibly shifted. Judith's composure finally shattered. This is precisely why we vet potential spouses to prevent gold diggers from threatening the family structure. Gold digger, I repeated with genuine amusement. I'm the one refusing to hand over my income. Your son married me for my earning potential after your family researched my career trajectory. Which of us is mining for gold? We protect family interests, Judith shot back. Jennifer questioned things too, and look where that got her divorce settlement. Nothing? Judith's outburst revealed more than she intended. The room fell silent as her meltdown inadvertently confirmed everything I'd suspected about their systematic targeting of financially valuable spouses. Walter closed his eyes briefly, decades of careful manipulation exposed by his wife's emotional outburst. Perhaps we should adjourn to consider Isabella's proposal. Walter finally spoke. There's nothing to consider, I replied, standing and gathering my materials. My terms stand: 15% contribution with full transparency and external audit, or 0% with complete financial separation between me and all Campbell family entities. Nathan turned to me, desperation evident. Isabella, be reasonable. You're my wife. Yes, I am. Not a Campbell acquisition. Not an asset to be liquidized for family benefit. Your wife supposedly your partner and partners don't exploit each other. I closed my briefcase with finality. I refuse to be another Jennifer, Rebecca, or Kathleen, gradually stripped of independence to fuel the Campbell machine. The mention of these women whose financial autonomy had been systematically dismantled visibly impacted the room. Uncle Robert glanced guiltily at Aunt Kathleen. Rebecca sat straighter, something like hope crossing her features. This family has confused control with connection, exploitation with loyalty. I continued. I won't participate in that confusion any longer. With that, I walked out, leaving behind a tableau of shocked faces. No one tried to stop me as I crossed the marble foyer and stepped into the evening air, drawing my first full breath in what felt like years. The days following my confrontation with the Campbell family were surprisingly peaceful despite the upheaval. I stayed at Emily's apartment, sleeping better on her lumpy guest futon than I had in months in my luxury condo. The weight of navigating Campbell expectations had been exhausting in ways I hadn't fully recognized until freed from them. Nathan called repeatedly, his texts cycling through anger, guilt-tripping, and eventually negotiation. Walter sent a formal email proposing modified terms that still preserved Campbell control while creating an illusion of transparency. Judith remained silent, her weaponized charm rendered ineffective against someone who had seen behind the curtain. The most unexpected communication came from Rebecca, a simple text reading, "Thank you for saying what some of us couldn't." A week after my ultimatum, Nathan requested to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. He arrived looking uncharacteristically disheveled, the Campbell polish tarnished by stress. "I've been thinking about everything you said," he began after awkward greetings. "You're right that there's been deception, but I truly do love you, Isabella. That wasn't fabricated. Love without respect isn't love." I replied simply, "Did you respect me when researching my income potential, before approaching me, when opening credit cards in my name, when agreeing to surrender half my salary without consultation?" Nathan flinched. "My relationship with my parents is complicated. The pressure to contribute, to maintain status within the family, it's all I've ever known. Financial worth equaling personal worth." His vulnerability seemed genuine, but experience had taught me to verify, not trust blindly. If we have any chance moving forward, we need complete financial separation for at least 6 months, weekly couples counseling, and your commitment to establish boundaries with your parents. Nathan agreed to all terms, though whether from genuine change or temporary accommodation remained to be seen. Time would tell if he could truly extract himself from toxic family patterns. The professional fallout was minimal. To my relief, my boss, Richard, was supportive when I explained I was dealing with complex personal financial matters. He even implemented company-wide financial wellness seminars after I shared a sanitized version of my experience. "Too many talented people get derailed by financial stress," he said. "If we can help our team build better financial literacy, everyone benefits." My performance remained excellent, perhaps even improved without the constant drain of Campbell machinations. The mental energy I'd been spending on navigating their expectations was now channeled into innovative campaigns and strategic planning. More surprising was the aftermath within the Campbell family itself. My stand had created fissures that widened into significant cracks in their unified front. Rebecca and Daniel implemented their own financial boundaries, reducing contributions and requesting documentation for the first time in 8 years. When Walter resisted, Rebecca threatened to follow my example and demand a complete audit of family investments. Aunt Kathleen began questioning long-accepted family financial traditions, particularly after discovering that Uncle Robert had contributed her inheritance to Campbell Investments without her knowledge decades earlier. Even Cousin William, who had benefited most from the family arrangement, started asking uncomfortable questions about transparency and fairness. Walter ultimately respected my terms, though not from ethical awakening, but pragmatic recognition of potential legal and regulatory consequences if I shared my findings more widely. Our interactions remained strictly businesslike on the rare occasions we met. Judith never forgave what she perceived as betrayal of family loyalty. To her, my boundary setting represented a fundamental character flaw rather than healthy self-protection. Her disapproval became a strange badge of honor confirmation I'd disrupted a system that shouldn't have existed. The most meaningful development came 6 months after my confrontation. Rebecca invited me to lunch, bringing her friend Jennifer, the pharmaceutical researcher Judith had inadvertently mentioned during her outburst. "Your stand inspired me to rebuild," Jennifer explained. "I lost nearly everything financially when I divorced William's brother, but hearing how you confronted them gave me courage to fight for my patent rights in court." Jennifer had been married to another Campbell cousin, contributing her research income and even licensing valuable pharmaceutical patents to family businesses for a fraction of their worth. When she finally left, the Campbells had used their legal resources to ensure she received minimal divorce settlement. But your presentation gave me the framework to challenge their patent arrangements. She continued, I've reclaimed two major patents and licensed them independently. For the first time in years, I'm financially secure on my own terms. This connection led to an informal support network for others affected by financial control dynamics, not just within the Campbell sphere, but beyond. We shared resources, recommended financial advisors and attorneys, and provided emotional support during difficult transitions. Our group grew to include 8 women who had experienced various forms of financial manipulation in their relationships. We met monthly, sharing strategies for maintaining independence and recognizing red flags early. Financial abuse is more common than people realize, Jennifer observed during one of our meetings. It's often disguised as love, family tradition, or practical partnership. We developed a resource guide that we shared discreetly, helping other women recognize the signs of financial manipulation and providing practical steps for protecting their assets and autonomy. Nathan and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, testing new foundations of honesty and respect. The couple's counseling sessions were initially uncomfortable, forcing us to examine patterns neither of us had fully acknowledged. I was conditioned from childhood to view relationships as financial partnerships first, Nathan admitted during one session. Love was measured by willingness to sacrifice for family benefit. I didn't know how to separate genuine affection from strategic utility. Sometimes I wondered if the charming man I'd fallen for was real or performance, if genuine change was possible after lifelong conditioning. Those questions remained partially unanswered. Our relationship a continuous work in progress rather than a neatly resolved narrative. The most profound change occurred within me. Growing up with limited means had made financial security precious, something to protect at all costs. The Campbell experience taught me that true security comes not just from money, but from autonomy, transparency, and genuine partnership. I realized that wealth without agency is another form of poverty. Prestigious addresses and luxury brands mean nothing if you've surrendered your voice in the process. The appearance of affluence often masks insidious control, golden handcuffs that tighten so gradually you don't notice until they're locked. Today, I protect my financial independence not from fear, but from self-respect. Nathan and I contribute to joint expenses and investments based on clear agreements and transparent accounting. Our financial discussions might seem excessively documented to outsiders, but that structure has rebuilt trust between us. My experience also changed how I mentor younger women in my industry. Beyond career guidance, I emphasize financial literacy, boundary setting, and recognizing manipulation tactics. Your earning potential belongs to you first. I tell them, partnership means shared decisions, not surrendered autonomy. I share my story discreetly, helping them understand that successful, intelligent women can fall victim to financial manipulation just as easily as anyone else. The key is recognizing the signs early and having the courage to establish boundaries before you're too deeply entangled to escape easily. Sometimes I reflect on how close I came to being absorbed into the Campbell system. One moment of weakness, prioritizing peace over protection, could have locked me into their carefully constructed machine. The love I felt for Nathan nearly blinded me to the slow erosion of my independence. The most important lesson wasn't about money management, but recognizing that true family supports your growth rather than exploiting your success. Family isn't measured by what you contribute financially, but by how you're valued completely and unconditionally. The Campbell model targeting financially successful individuals for systematic exploitation isn't unique to wealthy families. Financial manipulation occurs across all economic levels, disguised as love, tradition, or practical necessity. I've learned to recognize the warning signs: partners who show unusual interest in your income, pressure to combine finances quickly, family members who treat your success as their entitlement, and any relationship where questioning financial arrangements is treated as betrayal. Real love encourages your independence and celebrates your success without seeking to exploit it. Real family wants you to thrive on your own terms, not according to their needs. 6 months into our rebuilding process, Nathan made a decision that surprised me. He took a position with a competing investment firm, completely separate from Campbell Investments, even though it meant accepting a lower salary and losing his inheritance claim. "I need to know who I am when I'm not trying to be the son my father expects," he explained. "And I need to prove to myself and to you that I can value your independence instead of seeing it as a resource to manage." It was a significant step, though I remained cautious. Trust, once broken by systematic deception, doesn't rebuild quickly or easily, but his willingness to sacrifice family approval for our relationship showed growth I hadn't expected. The Campbell family itself underwent significant changes. Walter's health declined under the stress of multiple family members questioning decades of financial arrangements. Judith retreated into social isolation, her carefully constructed worldview shattered by challenges to her authority. Rebecca and Daniel moved across the country, starting fresh with their remaining savings and refusing all contact with Campbell Investments. Their children thrived in public schools, and Rebecca returned to work as a teacher, something she'd abandoned years earlier under family pressure. The Campbell financial empire didn't collapse, but it certainly contracted. Without the constant influx of funds from exploited family members, Walter was forced to make more conservative investment decisions and actually account for his stewardship of family money. Epilogue. 1 year later. I'm writing this story exactly 1 year after my confrontation with the Campbell family. Nathan and I are still together, though our relationship continues evolving as we unlearn toxic patterns and build healthier ones. He's proven his commitment to change by maintaining complete financial transparency, attending counseling consistently, and establishing firm boundaries with his parents, even when those boundaries cost him financially and socially. But I've also learned to be honest about my own growth areas. My fear of financial vulnerability had made me defensive and sometimes unnecessarily guarded. Learning to trust again, while maintaining appropriate boundaries, remains a daily practice. My career continues flourishing. I was promoted to Chief Marketing Officer last month, with a compensation package that would have made the Campbells salivate. The difference is that now my success belongs entirely to me, shared willingly with someone who celebrates rather than exploits it. The support network Jennifer, Rebecca, and I created has grown to include 15 women. We've helped 3 women escape financially abusive marriages, supported 2 through divorce proceedings, and prevented several others from making financial commitments that would have compromised their independence. Most importantly, we've created a space where successful women can acknowledge vulnerability without shame. Financial manipulation often targets our strengths, our success, our compassion, our desire for partnership, turning them against us. The story doesn't end with perfect resolution because real life isn't a fairy tale. Nathan and I may ultimately decide we're too damaged by the foundation of deception that began our relationship, or we may continue building something stronger from the ashes of what we thought we had. What I know for certain is this: I will never again compromise my financial autonomy for anyone else's comfort or convenience. I will never again mistake control for love or exploitation for family loyalty. And your value isn't measured by what others can extract from you, but by the boundaries you have the courage to maintain. True partnership enhances your independence rather than threatening it. If you're reading this and recognizing patterns in your own life, trust your instincts. Ask the hard questions, demand transparency, and remember that you have the right to protect what you've built, regardless of who disagrees. Love that requires you to surrender your agency isn't love, it's acquisition. And you are worth so much more than becoming someone else's asset to manage. The most beautiful part of my story isn't that I escaped the Campbell trap, but that I rediscovered my own worth in the process. I am Isabella Martinez, not Isabella Campbell, not Nathan's wife, not Walter's daughter-in-law, but myself, complete and autonomous and valuable exactly as I am. That recognition was worth every moment of the fight to achieve it. Author's note: while this story is fictional, financial abuse is a very real issue affecting millions of people regardless of income level or educational background. If you recognize these patterns in your own life, please seek support from financial counselors, legal advisors, or domestic violence resources. Your financial independence is not negotiable, and you deserve relationships that enhance rather than exploit your success.